Yes, hello everybody. Phil Liggett, Paul Sherman. We're all set to go in the 2006 cycling season here on World Cycling Productions, and this is the 97th running of the race from Milan down to San Remo. It follows the coast all the way down, more or less. We've got the usual hills as we come towards the end. A massive distance, 294 kilometres. What a way to start the year, but by tradition, this is always the way we start the year, Paul.
Well, over the last couple of years, they've tried to toughen this race up by including a number of little climbs down towards the end, and most recently the addition of the Cipressa is to try and take this race away from the sprinters. But it all starts really when the race comes down to the capos, Capo Berta, Capo Melle, Cipressa, and of course the famous Poggio down towards the end. If you're looking for an Italian favourite, Leonardo Bertaglioni, he rides for Team Cofidis. A lot of people think he's got the ability to accelerate away from the rest on the final climb of the day, the Poggio. And of course, Mr. Consistent Eric Zabel, the man who wants to win with the Arc-en-Ciel jersey, is of course Tom Boonen.
Yes, and Alessandro Petacchi, all eyes will be on the winner of this race a year ago, Ali Jet. And Zabel, of course, is lead-out man these days. 9:30 as we're in the southern part of Milan here now, as we head the long journey away. Nice gentle rollout, bet your life. As soon as the flag drops, the enthusiasm of the first races of the season, and indeed the first Pro Tour race of the season. This is the world champion, Tom Boonen, a very, very good world champion too.
Chatting there with Robbie McEwen. Yes, a good world champion. He's only had 10 wins so far this season, and we're only in the month of March.
Yes, you can't beat that. Shades of Sean Kelly, I think, who at one time came to the start of Paris-Roubaix looking for his 15th win of the year. And Sean, of course, was one of those big-time winners. Well, they're still neutralised on those pictures, but we'll get down the road a ways now, and this is the start of the first move. 8 riders are clear, and they got away after 27 kilometres, so they're setting themselves an awful big target, 270k still to ride. Ouch.
Well, this is always very much the situation in Milan San Remo. The early morning breakaway gets clear, 10, 15 riders, sometimes building up a lead of 14 or 15 minutes before they head up to the Col de Turchino, down to the Mediterranean, and then the main field start to take it just that little bit more seriously.
Well, it looks a pleasant day, and indeed it is called the Spring Classic, the Primavera, but look at some of those riders wearing long-fingered gloves. Those 8 riders are now up to 11:21. They are Daniel Contrini, Unai Echeverria, Steph Sheerlinks, Ludovic Ogier, Gel Karlström, Mirko Algarini, Sergei Matveyev and Gianpaolo Ciulla.
Over the summit of the Col de Turchino, this is really the gateway to the Mediterranean. They've gone through the flatlands from Milano to here, and now as they drop down to the Mediterranean for the first time, the main field will start to get themselves organised and try and pull everybody back together. Looks like Sergei Matveyev, big strong rider from Russia and Panaria, and this is the first chance we get to look at the main field. Not surprisingly, Phil, Quick Step very much present at the front. They are trying to sort all of this out for their big man Tom Boonen, who, I tell you what, had 5 wins before the end of January, because he won the Grand Prix of Doha, won every stage apart from one in the Tour of Qatar, and just happened to take the overall win as well.
Not surprising at all. Then the world champion living up to the rainbow jersey very early on this year, because it's been something of a jinx on the shoulders of world champions over the last few years. Leguelia, scene of quite a famous race which takes part in this region later in the year, much later in fact, as the field here now continues to be dominated, but the breakaway is not running away with this. It would be highly unlikely that it will succeed all the way to the finish.
Well, the Trophy Leguelia, if you go back in a little bit of history, just happens to be the first race that was ever won by Team 7-Eleven in the long history that team had in association with the sport. And an unknown American cyclist at the time was the winner on that occasion, just happened to be called Ron Kiefel.
Yes, Ron Kiefel, who has a bike shop in Denver, Colorado these days, and a big one at that. Here we are, these beautiful roads closed down. We always keep the sea on the left here as the riders course the way down to San Remo. Then you can nip across into France.
At Ventimiglia is the crossing point there. That was Ludovic Ogier, who was sitting at the back of the group, number 121, the rider from FDJ. And I think most of these riders know the way the race unfolds, Phil, as they get down towards the end and we get to the series of capos, that the main field will start to whip up the pacemaking. There's two teams here very keen on keeping it nice and fast. Team Milram would like to bring it all together for Alessandro Patacchi, and of course Team Quickstep want to pull it all back together for their man Tom Boone, and this is a bit of serious organisation.
German rider Christian Nee setting the pace here, followed by Enrico Puigca in second place. He's also brought onto the team this year. Very strong German, very good sprinter, but here no doubt as a lead-out man now with Zabel for Patacchi. Well, they've kept and maintained the speed very, very well here as they continue to race down. And number 77 here is the Cofidis rider, and that is Steph Sheerlinks.
He's a young rider, interesting rider. In fact, not very well known in Belgium. He came onto the Cofidis squad under the recommendation of Alain Bondu, who used to be involved with Cofidis, but during that scandal involved where there was a drug scandal involved with the team, Bondu had to be the man to take the dive from the team, and unfortunately is no longer involved with the sport of professional cycling. A court case is probably going to come to right with that drug ring a little bit later in the year, and it was all to do with the French rider Philippe Gaumont, if I remember correctly.
Well, like all of these long drawn out cases, it'll be a while before that one reaches its conclusion. One of the riders involved in that is the British rider David Miller, and his suspension ends just before the Tour de France this year, so it's likely he will ride the Tour if he gets a contract, of course. This is the breakaway, still working very hard, and the message has gone out to the sprinters now. If they don't start to close it down, they're going to have themselves a problem, because it is getting up rather into unmanageable proportions here. Once we get down to the little capos, though, that's where the race has got to turn the screw.
Yep, but that's when it starts to get very difficult indeed. Capo Berta, to me, is always a real start of the aggression, and then the riders have got that very rapid succession of climbs. Capo Berta, Capo Melle, Cipressa. Cipressa is normally at around about 25 kilometers to go, where the race starts to split up, and the 150, 160 man lead group can very often get trimmed down to a small group of 30 or 40, and from that group we are surely going to see attacks come once we come down to the very famous Poggio, which Eddie Merckx used on 7 occasions as his launch pad to victory.
Well, we're right on the edge of the Ligurian coast here right now, and it is Team Milram who are going to feel pretty confident here. They don't know how Alessandro Patacchi is going. Today's the day to find out, of course, if they can lead him to the line, but also McEwen is in here, and so too is Tom Bonen, and so we're going to have a real shoulder-to-shoulder battle. Traditionally, this race can be won on its own. Riders have got away in the past and won, but usually they manage to claw their way back into contention as they climb the final hill of the day, the Poggio. These are still the 8 men, the same 8 men who set the pace earlier on, and they've been away for an awful long way, and at one stage got themselves over 10.5 minutes.
Well, actually, just talking about Alain Bondu a few moments ago, Phil, I used to race on the same team as Bondu, La Redoute, and he was in the early morning breakaway one year in Milan San Remo, and it succeeded, and he actually crashed on the first corner of the Poggio and ended up finishing in second place to a man by the name of Marc Gomez, who actually never did very much more in his career, but at least he won this race.
Yeah, I was commentating on it live at the time, and I remember Alan falling, which was a great shame, because I'm sure he would have won that race. Still, Marc profited from that, Gomez. Well, 2:18 the last time check, and still the pace is on here now. A lot of work being done here. This is beckoning now. We're going to see a rip-roaring last half of this race as they head into the hills.
Well, it's 2:18, and that's down from 11.5 minutes, and seriously, Milram all over the front end of this group. The big advantage I think they've got is there are 2 or 3 teams that really would like to try and pull all this back together, because if Milram or Quickstep fail, I'm pretty certain that Davide Monlotto will send a couple of riders to the front, because Robin McEwen is always the kind of guy who can come up with the win in a race like this.
Echeverria, this is Unai, not the sprinter David, at the front at the moment. And remember, they got away at 27 kilometres, so they must be feeling the pace by now, because the speed, as always, is quick. There's all the names for you. Daniela Contrini in there too, Jelle Karlström.
Allegrini is in this group as well for Team Panari. Panari have made the move here. They've got 2 riders in this leading group. There's Staff Shearlinks for Team Cofidis wearing number 77, but there's a lot of pressure on the front of the main field.
Alessandro Cortinovis doing the work there for Team Milram, and somebody pulling off there from Crédit Agricole. Didn't quite grab who it was.
Well, that was a quick stop here. We've always got the Mediterranean here on the left-hand side. A lot of work here being done by Cortinovis. He is the sacrificial lamb for Team Milram here this afternoon. He is absolutely burying himself, and I think the man in there for Team Quickstep is also Wilfried Kretschens. They will ride together almost as if they were on the same team until a little bit later on, and they've reduced the deficit that they have on this leading group of 8 riders, because once we get to the Capos, the series of very difficult climbs, I'm trying to see that. In fact, it looks to me as if that's the leader of Crédit Agricole. That could be Francesco Bellotti.
It certainly was number 81.
I didn't see why he was stopping.
It's amazing how, in fact, Crédit Agricole have made their team fully international these days in searches for victories, not just the French team it was with a sprinkling of English speakers. But that was Bellotti, and I don't know what his problem was, but he's going to have a job catching up today, because the field is flying. They're really moving down this coastline today. It's over, as we say, almost 300 kilometres, yet they're going to do it well inside 7 hours, which is incredible. But they are picking up a rising tailwind, which is often the case here, as it comes right up behind them as they head down towards the finish.
It's a dangerous race, this as well. You know, the riders in the main field are always having their hands on the brakes. They're always waiting. There's lots of crashes in this race. Everybody is nervous. It's the first real major rendezvous of the season. And I know in the past I've heard stories of riders who've got to the end of Milan San Remo and they've actually worn out a complete set of brake pads.
Last man here, Thomas Dekker, who's tipped to be a star for Rabobank in the immediate years ahead now. He's a tremendous bike rider, gets a full chance on the top team now.
Yeah, just coming off a win at Tirreno Adriatico. A lot of people are tipping him as being the next great star for Holland. I don't think he'll have too much to say here in Milan San Remo. I think he'll be more likely to look after the rest of the team.
Well, this is Unai Echeverria, 113.
Daniel Contrini as well, riding for the LPR team. This is a team that got into this event as a wild card. He's just on the far side in the dark black jersey with the green helmet.
Yes, that's the team of the Russian rider Dmitry Konishev, and I'm not sure whether he's racing or not this season, because he keeps retiring and coming back, but eventually that's the team he will be in charge of. There's the peloton, all massing, no news on anybody abandoning. It's very rare. This team goes all the way. Great training miles, as well as for those riders who are out to do well, like the sprinters. And there's always the opportunists, because Contrini here, he's certainly one of those. He favours a small breakaway. He's had his moments in his career.
Won a couple of races in France last year, including the Grand Prix of the Adélie in the latter part of the season. He'll be happy to get into a move like this, but I think most of these riders now, just Phil, looking at them, they're going through and sharing the pacemaking, but I think they pretty much know the writing is on the wall, because they know how fast the main field can ride down these roads. As we head down this main road along the Mediterranean to San Remo, you can actually see the difference in the speed. These guys are absolutely bowling along here. They will be touching now around about 47, 48 kilometres an hour.
Well, this guy's being motor paced by the camera here. The motorbike slow down and the race goes by. The red colours, by the way, are the new colours for Team Barlow World, a South African-based team, although it's been managed this year by I've forgotten his name.
Claudio Corti.
Claudio Corti. I couldn't think of former world amateur champion who's taken over the organisation, and he's got themselves a ride in this event, so that's a good start for them.
He actually got his world title in 1977 in San Cristobal, Venezuela. I happen to know because I rode that event but didn't finish. Fell off.
Oh, you fell off. That's all right.
There's a lot of riders fell off. The World Amateur Championships in the old days used to be a very dangerous event, because a lot of riders were not exactly all that good at bike handling. I suppose if I fell off, that's not much of an advert for myself, is it?
Now, what's going on here? Because this is one of the. Is that Echeverria? This is a split up here. No, that was Mathieu, wasn't it?
This is the first of the capos coming up now.
Well, this will be the Capo Berta perhaps as they start the climb, because this is Allegrini. Now, Allegrini has gone from the peloton here. This is a counter move. Gone from the breakaway. So Allegrini has put in the first move. There were two Panarea riders in that break. Echeverria has gone after him.
Well, this
so we're around about 254 kilometres covered here, and this is an attack on the Capoberta.
This is the Capoberta. I always remember this. In fact, that cactus just over there on the right-hand side of the road has been there since I was racing. This is the first of the hostilities. After the Capoberta, you drop down into Imperia, then you've got the Capomelle, then you've got the Cipressa, and I would think the main field would like to try and catch these riders before they get to the Cipressa, because then they'll have themselves in a fairly organised situation and feel they've got the race under control.
Well, we haven't had a time check since that 2 minutes 18-second gap. It's got to have come down, and the leaders have been waiting for these small successions of hills now. The Capoberta, we've come over the top of the Ciocchino. That was 151 kilometres. When the breakaway went over the top of that well-known climb, it comes too early to affect things. They had a lead of 8 minutes. Now here we are, inside 50 kilometres from the finish, and it's down to less than 2.5.
And the main field is now also on the early slopes of the Capoberta, so it's starting to come back together. There's still Quick-Stepper very prominent on the front. They're going through now to take up the pacemaking is Unai Echevarria. They're dropping off the Capoberta. When they come down into town here, and it's always a little bit dangerous, they go through the town of Imperia. And I remember the dangerousness of Imperia because right in the middle of the town, right in the middle of the race route, there is a nasty little fountain. And very often the wind and the spray from the fountain makes the cobblestones just a little bit slippery, a place that you really do have to pay attention.
Well, our cameras are giving us no indication. They're showing the peloton here, and I'm wondering if we've only got 2 riders left in the breakaway, because we never got a time check after that 2 minutes 18 seconds, and I just got a feeling that this breakaway might have been swept up. This is at the rear of the field. A couple of riders there from Team Barlow World. Thomas Decker at the back, Thomas Decker at the back.
Too many Deckers now. Thomas Decker, Eric Decker, Hans Decker.
Triple Decker.
Double Decker. Anyway, this is the descent down into Imperia, away from the top of the Capoberta. These are the 2 leaders. Always a little bit confusing at this place in the game. Unai Echevarria and Allegrini, they're number 61, and they're heading right down into the town square.
And we're looking here now as they come down off the little climbs. There's plenty more to come. Echevarria, the Venezuelan rider. David Echevarria, no relation, he's from Spain. As we look at the helicopters again on the main group here. The Fabian Weckmann is the Gerolsteiner rider passing underneath our camera. Lamprey, they've got some good sprinters on their team this year as well.
See, the main field now is pretty much into the outskirts of Imperia, and I think you might be right, Phil. I think those riders who are in that breakaway may well have been picked up on the Capoberta, which leaves us with just 2 leaders at the front of the race. That's Allegrini and Echevarria. Looking back over their shoulders, the next climb they will face once they come out of the town of Imperia will be the Capomelle, a pretty difficult climb in itself.
Well, we certainly never saw the catch, but there's the fountain. A little bit of a nasty twist there, but the coming togetherness, it's still Quick-Step, got control. They're absolutely charging through town here. Every man for himself. You've really got to be on your mettle now.
Well, a little bit of Italian pacemaking there as well. There's a crash, and I told you this is a very dangerous place. There is nearly always a crash here in Milan San Remo when you come right into the middle of Imperia. I'm not sure who that rider is who's gone down, but the doctors are right up alongside him.
I was just trying to get a glimpse of his number on his bike there, and I can't really read it, I'm afraid, but he's clipped that pavement and he's gone down very, very solidly there.
Well, let's have a look at how it happens
here.
Yeah. You see. Well, it's not damp as it normally is here, because what happens is the breeze pours the moisture down onto the road, but I really don't know how that man went down. He's the only one that happened to go down in that accident, but I think he'll be all right. The doctor is up alongside him.
Well, we leave him on the road here, but it looks as though, let's hope he's okay. I think it looks a little bit more serious than it is down there, but I think it's Marini who's gone down. But either way, he's heading for hospital, that's for sure.
Well, one of the riders from the Naturino Sapore team, and he went down very hard indeed. Let's just have a look at... I think he just tried to change his line going round the corner. I think he touched his brake and went down very hard. They seems to be okay. The doctors will look after him. He won't be finishing Milan San Remo this afternoon.
It's Massimiliano Mori who's gone down,
Mori.
Get a better look at him there. Well, let's hope he's okay. Not the way we want to see anybody start the new season, that's for sure. But the race goes on, of course, and crashes are the name of the game. And these are the two escapers here, Unai Echeverria.
Oh, you can see him now.
See it now, yeah. And he looks okay, actually.
Well, he looks okay apart from that lump on his face. And he's a man who for many years was a lead-out man for Mario Cipollini in the days of the Red Guard. And that's the end of his Milan San Remo here this afternoon. A very tough crash for him. It is amazing how crashes tend to appear and happen in exactly the same place every year. And this man, I'm sure, knows that because he's ridden Milan San Remo many, many times.
Well, here we go now. And now, are we looking here at the remnants of the breakaway?
Yes, we are.
So they're still there.
They're still surviving. These 6 riders have been left by the 2, but they're pulling the yellow neutral service car out. That would be an indication to me that the main field are not too far. In fact, they've caught Allegrini there. So we're looking at a slight regrouping here. 2 riders have been lost because we're now down to 6.
Now, have we got back Echeverria? That looks like him just in front of Allegrini, but there were 2 riders here.
There's 2 riders missing.
Yeah, you're right. They are back in the group. So the riders have come back together again. The confusion back there meant that we didn't see the catch, but the 2 breakaways are here. 2 riders have been dropped from the breakaway. Not too sure which 2. One of the Panasonics, so Sergei Matveyev has gone backwards.
Yeah, must have been
somebody else.
Matveyev will be one man missing, and the other rider, I think, is the Cofidis rider, Staff Shearlings.
Right, so that's established that. They're not telling us a lot, are they? So here we have the leaders now, 6 of them clear, and the gap is not huge, but it's big enough to keep going. We're getting in towards the last 30 kilometres of the race, and the way they're looking over the shoulders, just maybe they know the field is coming up.
Well, they're looking back to see if the referee's car is behind them, because they will know that if the referee's car and the neutral service vehicles are pulled out, then more than likely they're about to get caught. 191 there is Paolo Bettini in the golden helmet. Olympic Games gold medalist from Athens, and I wonder if today he's going to ride for himself or whether or not he's going to try and dedicate himself to the team leader, the world champion on that squad, Tom Boonen of Belgium.
Well, we'll find out in the next 30 kilometres or so, because that's all that remains of Milan San Remo. We've had just that one breakaway of 8. It got away after 27 kilometres. It's down to 6, and it doesn't have a very big lead right now. The field seem to have this race once again back under control before we start the hills towards the finish.
Well, we should now be trying to set ourselves up, I think, for the next big climb of the day, the Cipressa. We've still got Quick-Step doing a great job of work on the front. Cipressa is a climb when you come out of town. There's a right-hand bend, a very narrow right-hand bend with buildings on either side. It's very difficult immediately that you start, and very often we see riders just tailing off the back as soon as we start that climb.
These are the leaders. Echeverria now has gone to the back after his attempt at breaking away. Still only the 6 of them. The red jersey is Gianpaolo Ciulla for Barlow World. This is the field at the back again. I often feel this motorbike gets a little bit too close. It's almost guilty of pacing the race here.
It's not the rider's fault. The responsibility is for the motorbike to get out of the race and not be in contact with the riders at all. That's Goraz Stangalai from Team Lampre in 2nd position. You see, you have to be attentive here in Milan San Remo. All this traffic furniture on the run-in on this normally very busy Riviera road. Everyone coming back together now. They're now starting to line themselves up for the right-hand turn. That motorbike should definitely not be there. He's right in the middle, and the Rai seem to get away with an awful lot here when it comes down to filming Milano San Remo. I'm absolutely so. You see, even the riders are not happy. They're getting their arms up, starting to gesticulate. They complain about it. Quite dramatic. 16 seconds, that's all that's left.
Oh, well, it's nothing, and they are the 6 riders we thought they were, but now comes the counter-attacks yet again here. These are the leaders about to split up once more, the strongest to survive, up onto the dizzy heights.
Well, this is the Capomelle. That's the climb after the Capoberta. They drop off this one, and then they will start the Cipressa. Here you've got Allegrini trying to whip it up, followed by Contrini.
Ooh.
And I tell you what, you can see their pain all over these riders' faces. They know they're going to get caught now. The main field are boring. They're all looking over their shoulders. A couple of riders have sat up from the group of 6, because I think if we could just see back down the road, we would see. Yeah, you can just see the main field coming across.
Just saw the face here, the rider in black, Daniele Contrini. He just about expired there. He's had enough, and this rider here from Française de Jeu, Ludovic Augier, Another good trial, but they've really got nothing left in the tank, any of them here. And, well, they might not have, because when they get caught, they're going to have led this race for the thick end of 240 kilometres. That's an awful long way, 145 miles.
Yes, I think once they get caught, they may well not turn right off this road and go up the Cipressa and up over the Poggio. They might well just stick to the coast road and go straight down the road to the showers. Lampre have got themselves pretty much organised at the front end of the main field. They must be thinking about their man Daniele Bernati. He's got a good finish on him. And here's a little bit of a word. I think the referee there, Phil, was probably complaining about the motorbike.
I think so, yeah. They're very close. I know we want the pictures, of course. We want the pictures, but they do have the lenses that will give us a reasonable shot and not impair the riders. Anyway, we're continuing to get the switch off the road very shortly now. There is the catch. And it has come at around about, and is approximate 27-28 kilometres from the line here.
Well,
and
that's
so that
the
means
word.
We are now all together, and as they say, everything to play for.
Looks like Alexander Vinokourov over on the right-hand side as well. And I think this will be the first race that I've seen him in this year. I think it's probably his first race of the year. Just over on the right-hand side, champion of Kazakhstan. Bonin up at the front, looking nice. Looking resplendent in that arc-en-ciel jersey. Hard to believe that we're only just in March and he's already got himself 10 victories. A little bit of chaos here. Sorry about the picture breakup, but live pictures coming from the motorbike to the helicopter down to the finish line, and there's an awful lot of tree matter along the road.
Lampre have got all of their team on the front here now as they drive on, getting increasingly confident, because you've got to watch out for the Lampre boys, top Spanish team, Alessandro Balan and possibly Napolitano. They'll be their sprinters today.
And what about Damiano Cunego? He's the kind of man who's got the explosion to get away when we come down to the Poggio. Still the motorbike pretty close there, dragging these riders along in excess of 50 kilometres an hour. Swooping now off the Capomele, the next climb of the day. Look at the speed. These guys are under serious pressure.
Well, it's because of this tailwind.
They are now also racing for the right-hand turn, and that's when the Cipressa starts.
It's this strong tailwind that's causing the chase, and there you can see the flags there swinging right round behind the riders now, and we'll swing off to the right. Oh, and a little bit of a tight squeeze there. That's Stefano Garzelli who's just gone through there, and the world champion Bonin riding like a champion now, marshalling the head of the race. It's like the finish of the race now as they head to the next climb, the Cipressa.
Well, these corners are so important to be right up there. Each corner now, the corner for the Cipressa, the corner for the Poggio, is almost like the race finish. You want to get it. This is the corner, this is the start of the Cipressa. Look at that wall up against the right-hand side of these riders. Looks like Wegman coming up to the frontier on the right-hand side. Everybody's very nervous indeed, because they know that now the pressure's on.
Well, in fact, this is Peter Rollick who's hit the front here, and he's trying to stir it up, and he's got Garzelli, one of those two leaky gas riders behind. We're on the Cipressa. They've hit it at tremendous speed. The Lampre rider who brought them onto it and disappeared rather quickly was Alessandro Balan, but he's gone right from the front now. There's Bettini dancing on the pedals, looking for who's going to come up onto it. The leaky gas rider that went completely off the road into the turf and has lost all of his rhythm. I think he pulled his foot off.
Well, he lost everything there. Well, they were questioning the form of Paolo Bettini at the start of this race, but it looks to me as if he's riding pretty well. He's got his jersey ripped open there to try and get a little bit of air coming into it. Here's another good move coming. Liquigas again on the attack.
Well, that was Peter Rollick, who I thought was beginning to move clear here, and I'm not too sure who this leaky gas rider is. I don't think... Is it Garzelli? It certainly looks like it might be.
It didn't look like Garzelli's helmet coming out of that group there. This is a move by Barlow World.
Well, the Barlow World rider Alexander Efekim, he had a great season last year and a fairly new rider as a pro, but he's finding his legs now. Let's have a look then. I think it is. This is Stefano Garzelli who's come up. He may have changed his crash helmet.
Well, this is the move.
This is where he joined, and this is a huge move by the former winner of the Giro.
Well, that's a very good move. I think he looked a little bit confusing to me there with that headscarf he's got on, but there you could just see the big cat on the top of his race helmet. There's Bettini in the golden helmet. I can't see at all Tom Boonen. He seems to have slipped back a fraction.
Got a hold position now. These are the boys who are trying to make the most of the opportunities. These hills hurt, believe me. And it looks to me as though, in fact, Rollick there is in more than a spot of bother. He can't hold Garzelli.
Well, this is Mfikin coming across here. He's made the junction. This is a good move by this team. The jersey's a little bit confusing, the difference between Rabo with Barlow World and, of course, Aqua Saponi. They look very similar from the air, but this is a brilliant move by Stefano Garzelli. He's a great bike rider, good tactician, decided to go out on the first big climb before the finish, the one before the Poggio. You can see that panther there on his helmet.
But you know, to keep this pressure on at these speeds is asking an awful lot. But the pace has slowed a little bit now down at the back. This is the Rabobank team here, and at the moment it looks as though Eric Decker, riding out his last season, has got the head of the peloton.
They're thinking about Oscar Freire, a former winner of Milan San Remo.
Frank Schleck creeping up, is it?
Yep, that's Frank Schleck, champion of Luxembourg. He too is looking pretty good. Oscar Freire would be the man I expect they will try and work for, of course, with Team Rabobank. Won himself a stage in the Tirreno Adriatico, always an indicator of good form before Milano San Remo. But Stefano Garzelli, I think the only thing he can hope for here, Phil, is there's going to be a little bit of a split and a group of 8 or 9 riders comes across.
Massive effort here by Garzelli, riding superbly, but they're having to hold the whole field off at these speeds. I can't see it's possible.
Well, it's a long climb, Cipressa. You climb away from the Mediterranean right up to the small town at the summit here.
35 kilometres now. They're climbing this hill at about 22 miles an hour at the moment, which is amazing, and they're running him down. It's Frank Schleck of Luxembourg on the front, closing the gaps. Pull the motorbikes out the way.
Get them out of the gap. Frank Schleck looking over his shoulder, trying to nail back Stefano Garzelli, who still hasn't been caught, but now he has.
A tricky shot that. They're coming from the other way as well, look. As here we now, Gerolsteiner back on the front here. This looks as though it might be Maletti who's got himself to the front, replacing his teammate and riding away.
Oh, good move. Gerolsteiner, team on form. They've had a very good start to the year. Started it off in the Amgen Tour of California. This is a major acceleration. The road has been surfaced here as well. Just up in the top there, you can see the town of Cipressa, and then there is a very dangerous rapid descent back down to the coastal road again, where in the past I've seen a number of riders come unstuck.
You've got to have so much strength at this stage of the race here. As the riders know, this is where you must hold position, like Paolo Bettini, one of the craftiest riders in the peloton. He just stays at the front. When he gets too many people in front, he nips up the inside, repositions, but doesn't overwork. He knows he's going to get all of these attacks. Andrea Maletta from Italy, riding for Gerolsteiner, still holding them off, and for the moment doing a pretty good job as well.
Well, Team Phonak sending a man to the front. That was Koos Murenhout in the green and yellow strip there, trying to get himself to the front end of the main field. Everybody, I think, really, Phil, in a state of survival at the moment. There's Boonen. He's moved himself. He's dragged himself up to the front. I hope it's to the front. It's a long line of riders, but he needs to stay in contact. There's Paolo Bettini right on the front of his saddle. The pressure is really on.
Long, thin line. Boonen there digging pretty deep right now to keep position. The world champion trying to hide a little bit as well at the moment.
Coming off 3 stage wins in the recent Paris-Nice. He didn't start the final stage, but I don't really blame him, because that certainly did not suit him at all. A very vicious final stage of Paris-Nice, a circuit based around Nice. Again, another move coming. This looks like Carsten Kroon on the attack. Well, there's the capture of Maletta, as we now got more names going to the front here. Just see if we can catch his number. This is Pozzato. Pippo Pozzato. He's just, I think, paying attention to all the moves. His move this afternoon will be to look after Tom Boonen, but he looks pretty good. Looking over his shoulder to see who's going next. Well, there's no shortage of riders wanting to go, that's for sure. As they start now to make their way up towards the funnies. This is Luca Mazzanti, the Italian in the orange colours. They're all back together again. They're all over the place. Pozzato, he's not going to make a move, I don't think, Phil. His job this afternoon. Back there, just it could well be Cunego riding up to the front. This is the damage that's being done, but still a fairly big group left here, as we've still got about 1.5 kilometres to go to the summit of the Cipressa. But look at the line that this race is being dragged out into. But don't forget, these riders now have ridden 280 plus kilometres since they left the start at 9:30 this morning. There's Tom Boonen, still looking pretty good as he looks now to reposition himself.
And he's got he's in a good position now.
The CSC rider there actually was Kurt Atle Arvidsson. There's Oscar Freire right on the wheel of Bonen. Bonen looks good. He really looks like a great world champion. And right on his wheel, he's got a teammate, Paolo Bettini. Quick Step have come to this race for one thing, and that's to win with the world champion. What a thing to do, to get onto the Via Roma, throw your arms into the air with the world champion's jersey on your shoulders. But it's still a very big group.
Just look at the length. This is to be expected, but half the group isn't in contention anymore. That's the fact of life. The boys at the back may be following wheels, but they won't get up here because these riders at the front are not giving up at all, and that's why Bettini dodges wheels but doesn't get to the front. Bit of a tight fit round the left-hander, but you get some idea how long that is. And Pizzato now is riding for his world champion team captain.
I noticed Andrei Kushekin up to the front there as well for Liberty Seguros, a teammate, of course, of Alexander Vinokourov. He's also coming off a pretty sensible Paris-Nice. There's Freire just in the orange jersey. Bettini just over the far side. Looks like Alejandro Valverde. And now they're starting to crack.
They're cracking, and Bettini has got right behind Tom Bonen's wheel there. This is life at the back now. These boys are going to settle down to a gentle ride into the Via Roma, while the rest of them are still in contention, kind of. But it's an awful long way to the front here.
Look at that on the left-hand side.
In trouble.
When you crack on a climb like this. Riders now just coming into the final kilometre. There's the sign for the town at the top of Cipressa. And you can see that everybody's under serious pressure here just to stay in contact. They know the race is being unfolded at this point, and once you lose this line of riders in front of you, you might as well call it a day in Milan San Remo, because, my son, you ain't coming back. Look at Bettini's face.
Yeah. Bettini's concentrating though. Everybody's hurting, some not quite as much as others, but the Olympic champion here, the former champion of Italy, sitting right there. Bonen in perfect position here. Bettini knows that. He's taken his wheel. They're both on the same team, remember. Which one's leading for the line? I'd like to know the answer. Bettini's not doing much to help Bonen, that's for sure.
Well, Bonen really is the man on form, and I think that's what they're going to do here this afternoon. They've got him in an ideal position. Tom Bonen, not one of the great climbers, but he realises that to win Milan San Remo, he's got to get over the top of the Cipressa in a good situation and then get over the top of the Poggio. And if he gets onto the Via Roma, I don't really think there's many riders in this race can beat him, except, of course, possibly Alessandro Patacchi.
Well, it doesn't look very hard, does it? But these boys are hitting this at such a high speed. Bettini now driving through to give Pizzato a hand. Straight through on the inside, so it looks as though he is there to help Tom Bonen. And there's a little scurry of other riders there. Frank Schlecker's moved up into fifth wheel. Look at this turn of speed by the Cricket.
Well, Jiminy Cricket, El Grillo, Paolo Bettini, he knows exactly when he needs to do a favour for the team and when he needs to have the favour returned. But here, he's come to the front. Tom Bonen is looking majestic in his World Champions jersey there, but he's just getting caught out a fraction. They're right into the town now, to the summit of the Cipressa, and Phil, that group, which seemed rather a large group a few moments ago, is now a little... This is Cunego. I don't know where he came from.
Well, I don't know where he came from either. He must have slipped through on the inside, coming through the town there, because he's got a slight lead over the rest. A very tortuous descent now before we start going up again, and they're sensing that this race might be decided without a sprint today, because there's so many willing to attack at the front.
But still, the dark blue jerseys of Quick Step were pretty much in command at the front end of the main field. Rule number one, do not panic. Keep control, keep yourselves organised, and that is the power of the Quick Step squad, and they should theoretically be very easily able to pull this man back together.
Cunego now being brought to heel here by the Quick Step riders once again. They must feel as though they've got a real chance. We haven't said much about Alessandro Patacchi yet because we haven't seen him.
Up there you can see Bettini going around the corner, using all of the road here just to make sure he doesn't lose any impetus at all. He's doing the job for the team this afternoon, cutting the corners, keeping the pace high. We're plummeting off the Cipressa here at speeds approaching 70 kilometres an hour. Tom Bonen in the white jersey still pretty much up to the front of this race.
Well, this is the Olympic champion, the man that won his title so well in Athens, and in second place was Sergio Paulinho. We didn't know him at the time, from Portugal. He's got his place on the big teams now, though. Down through the S's here now, heading towards the Poggio. And this is going to be the crucial springboard before victory in San Remo now, and the Olympic champions got control.
Well, he's on the front, but I tell you, that motorbike is certainly getting into the way of the riders much too often for my liking. It's taking the speed up at the front end, but it can also be very dangerous because these guys don't want to use their brakes going around a corner. And the technical corners on descents like the Cipressa and the Poggio, the bikes can actually get around the corners faster than the motorbikes.
Well, if racing's going to be like this all year in 2006, we'll be happy enough, because after we caught those 8 riders, everybody, it appears, wants to mix it now. Nobody can get away. The big teams are trying to get control. The obvious winners should come from Quick-Step. They've had control of the head of this race for an awful long way.
Well, Paolo Bettini back onto the Mediterranean coast road now, is looking over his shoulder, wants to see the position of the big man in the white jersey with the rainbow bands on it, and that is the jersey of Tom Boonen. Boonen looks nice and comfortable, but look how long this race is snaked out on the side of the Arrière Pays here, not too far away from San Remo. We're going to get down onto the flat, and the riders will then face around about 10 or 12 kilometers before another right-hand turn away from the sea, and that is the Poggio.
Paolo Bettini using his body weight to get round those corners, taking a perfect line down. Nobody challenging him as he brings the race down to ground level again before we go back. The Poggio will bite at these riders now, and it should split this big field up. There's Alessandro Patacchi now trying to get in on terms as they swing onto the coast road. And it is still the golden helmet of Paolo Bettini who drives on in the hope he can deliver Tom Boonen to the finish.
Well, in the week leading up to this race, the question in the Italian newspapers was, Paolo Bettini going to ride for himself, or was he going to ride for the world champion Tom Boonen? And I think here, Phil, he's actually given us his own answer.
Just trying to work out who this Milram rider is here, who's certainly not afraid of sharing the pace. He's the only one we've seen. He keeps looking for the whereabouts of Patacchi. We've seen him briefly. He's up near the front somewhere, as we've got a big attack here, and it's going from Phonak. And that rider who's gone there, I think, is Murenhout. I'm not used to seeing him in Phonak colours. He's normally in the Rabobank colours.
Well, Koos Murenhout, a very good rider. Looked as if right on his wheel it was Frank Schleck about to take up the pacemaking. If we could just look back, it is Frank Schleck. He's made the junction. They've got a little advantage here. There are 4 riders going clear. There's a rider in there from Quick-Step.
That's Guido Trenti. He's an American by license, but of course he doesn't speak a word of American.
Well, he'll be in there, and he will, I think, try and also defend the chances of their big man Tom Boonen. He won't work too hard in this group. You see, he's let the gap go there. He's tried to slow it down a fraction. The main field is around about 150 meters behind.
And the 4th man to make that split's Vincenti Reins of Case d'Apan, who's just got onto the back. 4 riders clear. Hope that car's not planning on coming out of that junction as the riders go by. The champion of Luxembourg setting the pace now. That's Reins. This is Trenti. And the other rider who made the move is Murenhout. He's just about there now. He's trying to recover. Is the gap here? Yes, it is. Now, this is an interesting move. I think you're right. Trenti's not going to endanger anybody here. Shame we can't hear what he's saying, but I presume he's talking to the Rai television viewers.
Right, and Milram now looking over their shoulders, trying to get themselves organised, looking down the line. We're looking for Alessandro Patacchi. Where's number 1? I thought I just caught a glimpse of him at the back of this group, but that's the damage that was done by the Cipressa, and these guys at 10 kilometres to go are starting to pull themselves back into the race. That looks like big Thomas Dekker.
It looks like it is, as he tries to reach the leading group before they start the Poggio. Couple of kilometres to go to the climb yet, but once you're on it, if you've made a big effort and you've not recovered, you'll be off again.
Well, they've got about 2 kilometres to go now before the right-hand turn. On the front, it's Milram getting themselves organised. I presume Eric Zabel must be in there somewhere. Alessandro Patacchi, I saw him a little bit early, but he was riding a little bit too far back for my liking. And we've now gone a bit further up the road. We've got 3-4 riders in this group. Just sitting on Trenti will not contribute at all, I don't think, to the pacemaking. He will be under strict orders.
Well, these 4 are surely going to take us on to the Poggio, and then we'll see what happens. They're not all looking that strong to me. Murenhout, who set the pace though, has recovered. He's gone back to the front. This could be a great ride by Frank Schleck. He had a terrific year last year, Frank Schleck, and this could be his big move here.
Well, he's a great rider. His father, Johnny Schleck, was a great bike rider in the 1960s and 70s, and he's got a young brother who, in fact, they reckon is even more talented than Frank Schleck. And I don't think it'll be very long before we start talking about him on the international circuit either. Trenti there, just sitting on the back.
Well, Schleck, the national champion of Luxembourg. It's a long time since we've had a crack rider coming out of Luxembourg. Kim Kirken is obviously a very good rider, but he's not been the quality of the likes of Charlie Gall. or even Nicolas Franz, although even I wasn't born when France was winning races. And last year Schleck got the Grand Prix of Zurich in second place, and he was third in the big race at the end of the year, the Tour of Lombardia. So he's kept his form through the winter, counting the days to get at Milan San Remo. This is a huge move here. Vincenti Reigns, I don't know anything about him, but he's riding well today.
He's riding exceptionally well. That flick of the wrist there was an indicator that he wanted Frank Schleck to come through. Frank Schleck looks very cool. I reckon he's in good form here this afternoon. He's riding very well, and this final few kilometres, 15 kilometres to go. I think we're looking at not very much more than a kilometre now before we take the right-hand turn onto the slopes of the Poggio.
Now another move here now coming from the Naturino team, and this rider here is Leonardo Giordani. He's also tried to slip away, not really going anywhere, as he takes a peek underneath his saddle to see where the rest are.
Former world champion, if I'm not mistaken, under 23 level of the sport, and that was an awful long time, but he's never shown the promise that gave him that world title, and he's been caught out in the middle of nowhere. And Mario Cipollini, Super Mario, at the finish line. This was a race that he loved.
It was indeed. No doubt he'd be on the podium at the finish, but who's he going to give the trophy to? Because Pataki we haven't seen very much of, and just to prove me wrong, is Pataki here? No, this isn't Pataki.
Not yet, but he must be, the way these riders are on the front doing the work for Team Milram.
Well, on the Armo.
Yes, I quite agree with you.
They like us.
I quite agree with you, because that really is kind of falsifying the chase a little bit. The motorbike getting too close to the front end of the main field. And again, he just locks right in there. I should think the referee will not be very happy with the producers of Rai Television here this afternoon.
Well, it's not very fair, is it? Because we've got 4 riders clear there, and that was the teammate of Reigns who was shouting because they're endangering his teammate up front, who currently is riding in second place here.
Vincenti Reigns, by the way, although we haven't heard very much about him, is a rider who rides very well at the start of the season, because last year he won a stage of Paris-Nice, and that, as always, is before Milan San Remo, so he's obviously a man for the early part of the year. But they have got themselves here a fairly good gap, and that group is not a huge group of riders who are lining themselves up for the big ascent and the big attack of the Poggio.
Well, we are going to see a terrific assault of the Poggio, because they know if they don't reach those 4 by the top of the Poggio, they won't see him before the finishing line downtown. That motorbike is still determined to give us the shots we'd love to see, but we would prefer to see a true race as well. He's gone away this time. I think he's just got an earful off the race referees, because all the television bikes are on race radio. Every car on the race route is, so they know what's being said.
Bonin looks good. He's up there in about 10th position, so he's lining himself up nicely now for an attack on the Poggio. Right, here we come. This is the next town. There's a small railway bridge the riders have to go under just there. Once they come out, it's not very far before the right-hand turn onto the Poggio.
I don't know what Schleck said to Reigns there, or in what language, but they didn't seem to be very cohesive, and there we get in trouble again with the teammates here of Reigns.
Well, the cameraman there is obviously not happy. He wants to get in and get the shot as close as possible, but he certainly is, as far as I'm concerned, falsifying the speed a fraction. It's okay to film from the side like this because you're not pacing the riders, but certainly that's what he was doing a few moments ago, and Reigns' teammate is the man who keeps coming up there, trying to get him off the front end of the peloton, pushing them up to speeds of close to 40 miles an hour.
Well, I've got a feeling that Pataki's come up there, because that was Marco Vello first into the tunnel, and with him was Fabio Sacchi, the 2 big men of Pataki. Now, they wouldn't do anything if he wasn't there, so I think they're trying to organise the chase here now as we get up towards the Poggio. There's the rather rough waters to our left here. It's a bit rougher out in the race right now, as here comes Reigns again, riding superbly for the Case Depart team.
Oh, it's a pretty rough Mediterranean out there this afternoon, and it's a pretty rough race here too. Just at the back there, Trenti has not done a single turn at the front of this group. Goraz Stangalai, he's thinking about possibly Cunego, possibly thinking about one of the other riders like Alessandro Bellan, but they are really charging down this road here. It's the Via Aurelia, the main road that takes the riders from Savona all the way to the borders of France.
Well, Stanglish has got Bellan in his slipstream here, and I wouldn't mind betting the third Lampre rider is Napolitano, because he's really, I think, the sprinter who should deliver at the finishing line today. And meanwhile, back in the main field here is David Kopp. Finally gets his chance on a big team here, riding for Gerolsteiner. And he can pack a sprint, by the way. He's once on the same team as Jan Ullrich. He left the team because he wasn't being given the chance to win races.
Well, vantaggio 22 secondi, 22 seconds the advantage. That's not very much at speeds like this. This corresponds to around about 400 meters, and that's what 400 meters looks like. These riders now are hoping to make the right-hand bend. We're coming in now to all of the greenhouses which deck the coastal line here in Mediterranean as the riders now start to look for that right-hand bend. They've been in the saddle for 6¼ hours and still no work at all has been done by the man in blue at the back there, Guido Trenti. He is just waiting for the main field to return, and of course the hope, the consecration of their man on the front, Tom Boonen. But this is a move coming from FDJ.
That's an amazing time when you think they've pedalled 180 miles already in 6¼ hours. That's how fast they're going. They're just 6 miles now from the finish. Somebody from FDJ did try a move. Not sure whether he got round the camera, whether he got put back in the race. No, here he is now. And this is actually Frédéric Guédon, Mr. Handlebar himself, former winner of Paris-Roubaix.
Well, Guédon is a very seasoned professional bike rider, loves the big occasions. He loves Milan San Remo, loves Paris-Roubaix. That's the race along with Tour of Flanders that he really gets psyched up for. It's a good move by him, but I think he's only got himself really halfway across the gap there. The gap is still holding on to around about the 20 seconds, and there's the corner. That is the start of the Poggio.
Now let's see, with they're bound to launch an attack immediately from the bottom of the climb here. The 4 leaders have gone on with a lead of about 15-16 seconds, I would reckon. Murenhout, who started the move, is still setting the pace. Schleck, for my money, is the danger man up in this break, as now Rabobank are trying to whip this pace up and deliver Oscar Freire.
Inizio del Poggio, start of the Poggio. Look at that, in third place, right on the wheel of Oscar Freire is Tom Boonen. But I agree with you, Phil. I would expect a move to come from Frank Schleck, because he's the man who's got the power to go clear on a climb like this.
9 kilometres to go. No time check on the screen. It can't be more than 15 seconds. The Poggio is upon us. The most revered climb in Milan San Remo, the springboard to victory here. This is where Moreno Argentine thought he won till Sean Kelly arrived on the scene, and that was the end of Moreno Argentine's chances.
Well, Eric Decker is the man whipping up the pace for the man on his wheel, Oscar Freire. The gap was certainly plummeting now. But the thing is, the advantage the 4 leaders have got, this is such a twisty turn, they are never really in sight. Although, looking back there, I can see the shadow of the main field, Testa della Corsa, but I wonder how much longer that is going to be.
They're still hanging together here. Koos Murenhout, he's not won a lot of races. He did win an opening stage of the Tour Down Under in Australia a couple of years ago. And now setting the pace here that's looking good. I think it's Eric Decker at the front here now, is continuing to wind this pace up, giving it his best shot. They're not really closing in here. There's still a room for manoeuvre, and once we're over the top of the Poggio, down the S's into the finish. There's the gap. Let's have a look right down the gap, and it's still Rabobank trying to move.
It's around about 150 metres, the gap. There's Paolo Bettini still up at the front there. Number 6 is right there as well, and that is Fabio Sacchi. He's one of the riders from Milram who will be trying to lead out the sprint for their man, of course, Alessandro Patacchi. Thor Hushovd is also not too far away in the green and white. This is the move by Schleck.
Oh, we expected it, and Schleck has made the move here now. It's everything or nothing here for Frank Schleck, the champion of Luxembourg, who finished the season with a flourish in Italy, now trying to open it with an even bigger one. As he grits his teeth now, he knows if he can get any gap at all over the top, he can plunge to victory in Milan San Remo.
Well, look at the way he's going around this corner.
Oof,
unbelievable. This is the acceleration of Frank Schleck. Looks into the eyes of Koos Murenhout and says, well, son, you're not going to come with me, are you? Because you've got nothing left. And he's accelerated. The way he went round that corner, he was not taking any prisoners at all. Just let's have a look at this one more time. He really was giving it full on. Look at that. Wrong angle, mind you.
Totally. He's gone through on the inside. He should have come wide and cut the angle off, but there's the peloton around that same corner now, so the time of that slow motion replay is all the lead he has in this race as Schleck now continues towards the summit.
Well, if you get over the top of the Poggio with a 10 or 15 second advantage, you've got a very good chance of coming up with the win. But he's losing a little bit of impetus going around these corners, but it's also an indication, Phil, of just how fast he's going up this climb.
Well, the crowd here not very thick. They're all downtown awaiting for the arrival of these riders, and that is Frank Schleck going for gold for Luxembourg. The Rabobanks have got 3, followed by Tom Bonen on the front, so it's Frere in front of Bonen now as they try to whip up the pace. Going to be some special riding though. Frank Schleck will take some catching.
Well, Oscar Freire in second place. Let's not forget a former winner of Milan San Remo, although on that occasion Eric Zabel thought he'd got the win, threw his arms in the air, and suddenly Oscar Freire from Spain nipped underneath him to get the win for Spain. Up towards the top, we're not quite to the first corner as the riders will start the descent. Paolo Bettini's not too far away either in his golden helmet there. This is a massive struggle for everybody, but I'm glad to see that Bonen is right up at the front. He is surviving the Poggio here, and if he goes over the top in the first 5 or 10 places, there's not many men are going to beat him in the sprint, but they've still got to catch the man on the left who looks very cool.
There's got to be a move from the peloton now, otherwise Frank Schleck will ride away with this. These roads are narrow, they suit a breakaway at this point because you don't see your man ahead anymore as they come over the top. There's a long thin line. Rabobank clearly are boosted by the thought that they can deliver Oscar Freire. Mikel Astolosa is there too for Barlow World. He's right at the front in the red jersey. Zabel bringing a few riders through, and Lampre have got their men. This is going to be one finish down the bottom, that's for sure.
Well, I reckon Schleck is around about 500
There's
metres.
Milan.
Oh, a good move by Balan, a big strong move, a big acceleration. He will get halfway across the gap, but look, everybody's all over him. They're not letting anybody go free.
I think that's Pizzato has gone after him there, and they've gone straight through the gaps now. Schleck won't know what's happened here, but if you make the move, you can close 18 seconds in a matter of a few minutes. And that is Astolosa, who's also trying to bridge and taking with him a Rabobank.
Well, he's got the acceleration. Astolosa, former world champion, as he goes across the gap there, right on his wheel. Interesting to see one of the riders coming up there as one of the men from Euskadi.
They've gone straight past him as if he wasn't there.
Sammy Sanchez is coming across the gap as well for Euskadi, the rider in the orange jersey. Well, that is a big change for the boy. That is Pippo Pozzato. He again, I think, will just try and match the move. They're all thinking really, of course, about their man Tom Bonen.
Well, Alessandro Balan, the rider we were talking about, is working perhaps from Napolitano, has made a move here. He's dragging away with him Filippo Pozzato. That is Astolosa who's come onto the back. 3 riders clear, and the daylight has formed between them and in fact, Astolosa hasn't quite got on here.
You've got to be right on the wheel at speeds like this on the Poggio. By the way, Alessandro Balan was the winner of the Trofeo Leguiglia just about a month ago, and who's this coming across? This is one of the riders from Acqua Saponi.
Well, the gap has opened. How many riders are there left there? It's possibly Nocencini of Acqua Saponi. It's number 31. It's in fact Igor Astolosa. Oh, we've gone back up the road, sorry. Igor Astolosa still struggling to gain contact with these two. Balan has not looked over his shoulder yet, and he's not asked Pozzato for anything. But he's going to have to make a decision. Frank Schleck has not been caught. Sanchez is there.
Still surviving. Schleck now in that small group with Nocentini and Sammy Sanchez. And the main field now making that corner. It's now a very tricky and tortuous descent. Tom Bonen must be feeling fairly happy. He's got a teammate in front, Pippo Pozzato, who he knows will not do anything at all to the success of that breakaway. They could all come back together inside the final kilometre.
Well, this is the oh, somebody's crashed there straight into the crowd barrier, and he's managed to get back out of it somehow. He didn't even fall off his bike.
Nerves. It's all nervous now as we come down to 5 kilometres to go, and at these speeds, Phil, 5 kilometres translates to 5 minutes, because we will do 60 kilometres an hour off the slopes of this hill.
I think this might have been the corner where Alain Bondou went down here when he was descending with Gomez to the finish. It looks like it.
Just started to rain a fraction. It had been a very dry day. The little bit of humidity came onto the surface, and boom, his front wheel just came away from him.
No rain today. Just 3 riders now against the rest of the field in Milan San Remo. And those 3 riders, Balan made the move, Pozzato jumped on it, Astolosa's had a bit of a problem getting across, but I think he's there now. And the field being led by Milram, because Tom Bonen's team won't chase now, Pozzato's there.
Number 1 is second in line, and that is Alessandro Patacchi. He's got a man in front of him, one of his teammates. He's followed there by Tom Bonen. He will be now thinking about getting a win in Milan San Remo for a second time. It's a race that all of the sprinters want to win alongside Paris Tours.
Well, these are the S's off the Poggio, and it's remarkable the way these riders with such skills don't fall, that they just snake the way down these speeds. Not a lot of change of position in the peloton, I'm afraid now. These are the leaders. Schleck looks as though he might be getting up there.
Well,
Schleck is back.
I think we're looking at a regrouping here. I'm trying to see how many riders. There were
5.
3 riders trying to come across, so somebody has come down in the crossfire, but Schleck, despite being the man to ride all the way up the Poggio alone, has still got something left to pull himself back into this race. The other man in the group with the red shorts is Nocentini, and here's Sammy Sanchez.
Well, Sanchez is the missing man, but he's coming across. He's not quite as confident on the way down, I don't think. But we're going to have 6 men coming off the Poggio. This is an unusual pattern in this year's Milan San Remo. The sprinters have lost a little bit of control of this race. Once they come off the Poggio, it's about 1.5 kilometres and they're over the finishing line. So the pressure must stay on, and it's all now against Milram. They've got to chase. Nobody else will help them.
They have got to get themselves organised to bring Alessandro Petacchi onto the Via Roma in an ideal position. It's a great sprint, a difficult sprint, slightly uphill. You've got to make sure you get the gears sorted out properly. You've got to make sure that you have a good lead out and you can turn that 12 or 11 tooth sprocket. Look at, Frank Schleck has got his foot out. This is a tricky descent there, but you see the control. He didn't panic at all, and poor old Sammy Sanchez, I bet his heart rate jumped.
I bet it did. He actually seemed to clip the wheel there of Astolosa, and he quickly got his foot off and corrected the slide. That could have been a heavy fall, and the peloton just behind. 3 kilometres to go. Here are the peloton now. Tom Bonan still riding in 4th or 5th place, looking very good, but just trying to mess up the chase here because he might be confident Pozzato can take care of the others.
Well, the man on the front is number 6, Fabio Sacchi, one of the men who's doing the work, of course, for Alessandro Petacchi. Petacchi wants this all to come back together. Testa della Corsa, there you can just see on the front Astrolosa. There is Pippo Pozzato. There's Sammy Sanchez just on the back, and there, number 31, is Igor Astroloa.
Astoloa just goes up 1 slot here now. They're coming off the Poggio back onto the coast road. There was a much quicker way into San Remo than the way they came, believe me. Balan, who started it all, is still clear here and can deliver a good sprint finish. Sanchez can't perhaps be such a fast sprinter, and now it's Astolosa who's gone through on the inside. They are working together. 2 kilometres to go, and the peloton are still not in this race.
There they are on the front end of the main field. Milram now starting to get themselves organised. They're back onto the Via Aurelia. Just looking at that position there, number 2 looks like the man who has been the first man across the line here many times, Eric Zabel. He's trying to chase down the rider from Crédit Agricole. Where is the group? There they are. They're sitting across the road. What's going on?
Well, the Sanchez is the leader, but he wants somebody to help. Balan is going to take it up and start going again. Quickly jumped on by Frank Schleck. These riders really can't afford to mess about right now, because just round the corner is the main field. And remember, the sprinters will start to gather. Look at them now, right across the road behind the riders. There's an attack gone from the break.
And that was Sammy Sanchez once again. A little touch there by Tom Bonan to one of his teammates. I'm cool, I'm fine, just get me to the front. Let's make sure we get right onto the back end of this train. Let's have a look at this move again. That's Sammy Sanchez jumping out of the group. Now, what a surprise that would be. You know, apart from Oscar Freire, Spain has never really been very dominant in a race like this.
No, they most certainly haven't, but they are creeping into the one-day classics these days, especially down in the Belgian Ardennes, where we'll go shortly with World Cycling Production, don't forget. As we're looking now at the leaders here, they are still clear. The peloton is right round, snapping on the heels, and this is the damage caused by Eric Zabel, who's trying to get Petacchi back into this race.
Right onto the wheel, there's Sammy Sanchez coming round the corner. It's all over right now. The main field have got it all sorted out. They're onto the wheel of Sammy Sanchez, and the main field are charging up. It's Rabobank trying to get this organised for Oscar Freire, who is right at the front end of the main field.
Well, it looks like Thomas Dekker has shut it down in favour of Freire, but the counter move has started. It's Eric Dekker, in fact, and just as they get on now, there's still Mikel Astolosa as they try to go, and Pozzato's still there. He hasn't lost all his fight yet as he now tries to open up the sprint. This is an amazing finish. Bonan is waiting in the field there, and it doesn't look as though he's going to get out of this mess. As far right now as Petacchi comes with his mouth Pizarro. And how's Pizarro doing this? He is holding them off. Filippo Pizarro is going to win Milan San Remo, and Pataki is second, and nobody will believe that, because quite honestly they'd caught him and he stayed away, and Paolo's quite happy with that.
He is quite happy with that, because these are the team of musketeers. It doesn't really matter who wins. Obviously Tom Boonen wanted to win, but he will be happy that the victory has stayed within the camp. Team Quick-Step, the Olympic champion here, Paolo Bettini, coming in off the back of the group, will be happy with the victory there this afternoon.
Well, Filippo Pizarro has won the race for Quick-Step, and it didn't look possible yet. He was in the move all the way. In theory, they caught him. In practice, he still stayed in first place. And Tom Boonen there, who's probably been given fourth or fifth on the line, is the first to congratulate him.
Well, I don't think Boonen was worried at all. He was just keeping an eye on how the race was developing. The man who really missed out was, of course, Alessandro Pataki. This is the move. Pizarro was really doing a great job of work looking after everybody. He matched every counter-attack that went. That was not Centini in the red jersey who tried to go. Then the kick went past there for Filippo Pizarro. He really judged it to perfection, and the main field were dying on his wheel. They were coming to him slowly but surely. Look at the power there of Alessandro Pataki, but I think at this point Philly knew it was all done, it was all lost, and he was not going to get it. Boonen could have been third there, but I just think Paolini came past him on the line. And this is the chaos of Milan San Remo.
Yes, and that is a very happy Patrick Lefevre there, because he's just landed another big one with his team. Not the one he planned to win with, but certainly a well-taken victory, and it just shows you that the sprinters don't always have their day.
This race is crazy. This is what it's like at the finish of Milan San Remo. It really is not quite as sterile, is it, of course, as the finish of the Tour of Flanders.
Well, Filippo Pizarro, we've seen him win a stage of the Tour de France, but this rider is still capable of big things, and Paolo Bettini using all of his full size to break through the crowd to congratulate Pizarro.
Well, this guy is real class, Phil. Look at that. He has time to look over his shoulders as he knows he's got the win. This photograph here will go down on his sideboard for many years to come, because the Via Roma is a beautiful place to win.
Well, Pataki there finally having to do with second place, kicking himself now, of course, because he did get through, best of the sprinters, but there was one man didn't quite get caught on the line. And so Alessandro Pataki will have to be content with second place. Not a bad defence of your title, I don't think.
Absolutely not. And Tom Boonen, I think, will be fairly happy. Although he didn't win this race, at least they kept it in the family.
So Pizarro adding to the fine form he showed just about 3 weeks ago in Het Volk in Belgium, where he finished sixth. Now gets the better of Pataki. Paolini third, Tom Boonen was fourth. Napolitano, the man I think Lampre were working for, delivered in fifth place, and Oscar Freire was in sixth place, with Stefano Garzelli finishing seventh, and Balan, who caused that split, still hanging on to cross the line in eighth place. Is this the face of 2006? We're going to find out. There's Graham Watson, our cameraman of the year, in the centre of the shots with the balding head. He got lots of shots of Pizarro. I don't know why he's bothered about this one.
Well, that was a great move. You know, it just goes to prove one thing about a move like that. You should never give up. You should always hope. This man won the race today because he rode defensively for his team. They were in the powerful position of having one or two cards to play with, Paolo Bettini and Filippo Pizarro, congratulated there by Super Mario Cipollini himself on the right-hand side, freshly into retirement, and sadly enough, having probably one of his worst injuries this winter, breaking his leg in a skiing accident.
Well, he looks okay there. So there we have it. Milan San Remo is done and dusted for another year, and I think you'll agree with us. It was a great race here. There is Pataki. He was one place higher a year ago. Paolini, always a good finisher and always up there, but never quite the winner. There's the full result. 6.5 hours for 294 kilometres. What a result. Well, Mario Cipollini knows all about it. Looks like he's just flown in here in his small fixed-winged aircraft, I think.
Well, actually, this is the second time that Luca Paolini has finished third in Milan San Remo, because he finished third, I think, way back in about 2003. One day, I think he may well come up with the win.
So, a win then for Filippo Pizarro. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage. What a season in front of us, and we'll see you throughout 2006. Goodbye for now.